I hope this thing's working. Is anybody there? Oh, here we are. You're live. Hello? 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 Is anyone there? Anyone there? Hello? Well, it looks like it's doing something. So, anyway, I don't know if the last one was working all that well or not. I really can't tell. Anyway, I'm not really sure if the last one was working. I'm going to have to go back through and check it out, but it's really good to see. It's great to be here tonight. I hope everyone is safe and feeling great. I'm going to start over again from where I left off on the... Actually, I'll start over again. That last one I don't think really worked all that well. Something was wrong, I think, with the... I'm not really sure. Anyway, so I recorded a new... first episode of an upcoming series I'm doing called Classic Board Games. As everybody I know is probably sitting at home, should be at home trying to find something to do. So one thing I think that would be a great investment now is board games, or just digging out some of the old ones you got. So I know I'd about doing it before, but I actually have finally started it, and I got a whole list of board games that I'm going to bring out and discuss. So if you have any suggestions of games that you would like to see on that sub-channel, let me know. You can leave a comment here, even if you are coming in later. So I'm really excited about it. I got some really cool footage. I'm probably going to upload it tomorrow night. It's going to take a while to get all the footage done, post-production and all that good stuff. I also wanted to share that I finally got Daphne to work. Now, if you're not familiar with what Daphne is, it's an emulator that, it's an emulator that emulates Laserdisc arcade games. I had an episode a while back about Laserdisc games, Laserdisc arcade games. Of course, we discussed the usual ones, and I've been looking for Daphne for a while, and I would download the emulator and I could not get it to work. Honestly, I think it is probably the most difficult emulator in existence. Not in the least bit user-friendly. You had no problem with it all. So I, paid for it. It was all set up pretty much ahead of time. So all I had to do was just start it. And it had all the ROMs with it, all the games. And many of them I had never heard of. I mean, honestly, most of them I had never heard of. Of course, we all know about Dragon's Lair 2, Space Ace, and Us versus Them. Those were the ones in my episode. But there were some other ones in there I was like, wow, I'd never heard of these. To be honest, a lot of them are anime kind of games where you're, playing like anime cartoons. And I was like, okay. There's some really cool racing ones, though. And, of course, there's Space Shooter. There's going to be Space Shooter games. So, I mean, the games on there are pretty cool. I remember the racing one was a lot of fun. I was really just kind of whipping around the track and stuff. And it was a really cool format back in the day. I'm really surprised that something like that isn't around anymore. I know they're trying to make games as realistic as possible, but honestly, I kind of miss those Laserdisc games. Those were very unique. And I think at the time when they came out, a lot of us were saying, oh, wow, this is going to be the new thing. And it really didn't turn out that way. So, but anyway, regardless, I'm so happy I finally got Daphne to work, because I wanted to play some of those games. I really, really wanted to play Us versus Them, since I actually was not able to play it. I had to get the footage somewhere else because, like I said, back in the day, yeah, it was on MAME, but it stopped working. A lot of stuff did. I also got the CPS 1 and 2. I couldn't get the third to work, which is okay, because there's not really a lot of games for CPS3 anyway. I think there's only like 6. And I just couldn't get them to work. CPS1 and CPS2 worked great, but not 3. So I'm like, okay, fine, forget it. and besides, really by that point, you're like, how many variations can there be of Street Fighter? Really? I know that's been covered by some other video game channels where they're like, why are there so many of these games? And they're all basically called PlayStation 2, Street Fighter 2, and they're pretty much just, I don't know why they just didn't keep making them into just call them Street Fighter 3 or 4 and just keep going like that. But I don't know. Honestly, now I got a lot of new games to play because there's quite a few of those CPS 1 and 2 games on there, and I heard about it on another channel that Kim Justice, she was talking about those games. And I'm like, wow, I got to check these out. Well, first thing I did was I went on MAME just to see how many of them actually still work because, so I tried it first. And I think out of all the ones she recommended, I think only like 5 of them worked. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to get this. So I did. I got the CPS1 and then I just got CPS2. And it's great because those games were just all the CPS games. And now, for those of you that don't know what that is, that's Capcom Play System, arcade. So, I mean, I just in case there's some folks there that don't know what that is. Yeah, it's Capcom. And, of course, Capcom is a game company that made Street Fighter. So I'm not as good at the Street Fighter games as I used to be, unfortunately. A lot of it has to do with my age, as I'm 45, and I kind of get arthritis in my hands sometimes. So playing those rapid-fire, button-pounding games like that, and it really just kind of wears off, makes my hands hurt. Not that I was really that great at them when I was young, but at least I could kind of sort of hold my own, sort of. It just depends on who I was playing against. But anyway, so I'm excited to have those. And what I'm really kind of disappointed about, though, is that a lot of people did watch my last 2 episodes that, people now should be watching because you can get an idea of some of the emulators out there and then, getting those set up on your computer. And then, you'll have them there to play. You're at home now and not being out and about. You got a lot more time. So, yeah, if you haven't checked out those 2, please do. Because I try to cover as many as possible that I have. And actually, I had to split it up into 2 episodes because there's just so many emulators out there. But honestly, you can't go wrong with RetroArch. If you don't think there's an emulator for a game system that I didn't mention, RetroArch is usually your best bet. Like I didn't mention the Nintendo DS. That emulator runs great through RetroArch. One thing though that kind of surprised me is how big those files are for the DS. I didn't realize they were so big. I don't know what I was thinking, that they'd be small like the Game Boy ROMs. Of course, the Game Boy ROMs are small, but they would be, But I was, just really surprised at how large the DS ROMs are. Not having owned a DS, I had a Game Boy way back in the day, but, So, like I said, if ever you are looking for an emulator and you look at my videos and then you don't see a particular game system on there, 9 times out of 10, it'll work well running through RetroArch. Of course, you could do your research on your own too. Now, the reason I don't have some of the newer emulators like Dreamcast or PS2 is, unfortunately, I don't really own a gaming computer. And, gaming computers are set up for that. They have much faster processors, especially more hard drive space, but they basically are geared towards gaming. You can see them like in the store. There was a really nice one they had at Walmart. It was orange and lit up. It was really cool, and it was like $2,500. Yeah, but it would be nice to have, that's for sure. But $2,500 is $2,500. So, but yeah, like I said, please do check out those two videos and take notes so that you get an idea of which emulators there are out there, and look at the channels that I recommended, because the guys that run those two channels know what they're doing, and they'll get you hooked up, and they go step by step with setting up the emulator, a lot of times through RetroArch and Launchbox. So it's something really, it's really something to invest in with your time and maybe your money if you have to. But generally speaking, you don't have to. Although ROMs are getting harder and harder to find nowadays. It's not like they used to be. You could find them just about anywhere. With Emu Paradise pretty much gone, except for the forums. Finding ROMs is not as easy as it used to be. So that's why I hope a lot of you stockpiled your ROMs and backed them up, on a flash drive or on a portable hard drive or something. Because the ROMs are getting to be very hard to find nowadays. So a lot of sites are getting shut down, and the thought police are going through the Google drives. So also I was still moving along on the other channel with Musical Memories. I'm still in the Lynyrd Skynyrd unit. Again, you can tell I was a teacher. I have it divided by units by the particular artist. So I'm still going with that. Now, this coming up episode, I'm going to be discussing One More from the Road, the live album that Skynyrd put out. I think was at 76. And then, I had already reviewed. I'm sorry. I keep forgetting. Street Survivors. That was actually the very first. Anything after the first pressing of that album have the changed cover. Okay, so what's going to be next then? Well, what I'm going to do after One More from the Road, I'm going to talk about some Skynyrd compilations. Now, honestly, I think no other band in history has more compilations than Kiss. But from the research I've done, Skynyrd's not far behind them. As I'm going to talk about some particular compilations that came out, and I'm not going to do just your typical greatest hits. I'm going to talk about some of the more interesting ones. I found one recently called Collectibles, and it had some songs that predate the Muscle Shoals sessions. There actually is not long after the plane crash, they put out an album a couple years later called First and Last, where it had some of their earliest recordings, which when that album was reissued, it was called the Muscle Shoals Sessions. And that has some of the earlier versions of their songs and songs that never made it. For instance, back in the early part, Ricky Medlock, who is, of course, now in Skynyrd that's about to be, winding down, he actually originally was a drummer and actually sang vocals too. But he left the band to form Blackfoot. So if you get that out, so you can actually hear him singing. He had a very, very high-pitched voice. And I don't think he was singing falsetto. He just had a very wide vocal range. And then I found out this, like I said, that album Collectibles, I found out it predates that. So this came out, I think, right around the time that album was recorded, or some of the songs in there were recorded right around the time when they stopped being called 1%. I think that wasn't that their original name, and they became Lynyrd Skynyrd. So it's got some real early tracks and some really good ones. There's a couple really, really good songs on there that I was kind of, like, why didn't these songs make it onto Skynyrd albums? But anyway, so after that's done, after I do those, then I'm trying to still kind of wondering if I should do the post 91 and 91 and after Skynyrd. I know I'd really like to do 20. That was a great album. Some of the other ones, like 91, Last Rebel, those ones for me personally didn't really hold up as well. So really they weren't all that great back then either, but 20 was, of course, was a great album. And I'd like to talk about kind of Skynyrd spin-off bands too, like both the Rossington Collins band's albums and the Alan Collins band. Those were just, all three of those albums were really good. And I may have not quite, it's not etched in stone yet, but I may have an interview with somebody that I've mentioned several times throughout these Skynyrd episodes. So it's not etched in stone, but like I said, I may have a special episode where I go back and do an interview. Now, if you've been with the channel for a while, I used to do interviews with programmers, and it was going pretty good for a while there. And then one particular game programmer just kind of loused it up. And then after that, I'm like, no, where I just kind of would focus on the work of a particular programmer and then just put a couple quotes in there. When I talked like to Edward Smith and with his really cool games that he has out there and still continues to keep making, of course, and then, I did, the one with John Champeau was a full-fledged interview. So, but, and then of course, then I did one on Scott Dayton, the guy who's like the king of hackers, Atari 2600 hackers. He's just amazing. And so that was more of a privilege to do that one because he'd helped me and has helped so many people learn how to do hacking. And then also Dr. Clue helped me too. Those two guys really helped me out a lot. Dr. Clue, as he worked with me on my first real serious hack, that being the Moomin game, the Moomin hack, where we hacked that Smurf game and made it Moomin. He did some great work on that. But of course, he is an award-winning hacker, as he won the Atari Age 2018 Best Hack for Miner 2049er. Made it, better and faster. Man, I love that game. I do. I've always loved Miner 2049er. That game is just so much fun. It's a fun game. It really is. And it's just so simple, but yet it's considered by some to be one of the greatest video games ever made. And it rightfully so. A game that's simplistic, and yet it was programmed by a guy who learned how to program while he was working at Radio Shack. But anyway, so we only got one person. I don't know if that's me or what. I was kind of hoping I get more folks in here, but I don't know what everyone's up to. So anyway, but I'm excited. And then I've got another new sub channel I'm going to be working on too. I'm not going to give details about that, but it's going to be really interesting. That's going to be really a lot of fun and something I've wanted to do for quite a while. But the board game one, like I said, I didn't realize how many board games I have until I decided to do that. And I went down to the basement and I'm like, wow, I got quite a few games here. Yeah, and I actually got some of the ones from when my daughter was young. We used to play a lot of, when she was little, we played a lot of them. Like Candyland, Don't Spill the Beans. Ants in the Pants, that didn't work out too well because she could never, push down and flip the ants into the pants. She would flip them every way but that. So I said, you know what, we're just gonna, and I got rid of it because we just couldn't, we couldn't do it. And it wasn't fair for her to not be able to put them in at all. Cootie was a game that she really liked. One time she was so happy about the job she did at making the cooties that she made me take pictures of them. I got them in my phone somewhere or on a disc. But she had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun playing games when she was a kid. We had so many. We had all those Hasbro games, Candyland, I think, was one we probably played more than any other. But that's one of those games. That's like a kid game. That's like a kind of like one of those like unwritten rule that you have to play Candyland when you're a kid. We really had a lot of fun. I can't tell you how many times we played it, but yeah. Then we had these card games that she got in her Easter basket with Old Maid, Crazy Eights, and they were actually Hello Kitty games. I taught her to play checkers later, and now she's actually in the chess club at school. Actually, I think that's more because she wants to. She wanted to spend more time with her boyfriend. So anyway, of course, none of them are doing that now, as they're all doing e-learning. So she hasn't had a chance to see any of her friends, or and I just hope by next school year all this is done so she can see her friends again, because who knows, I mean, she may not get to see him this summer, so her time on the phones and other stuff is where, like, when they were in school, it's just kind of sad for my daughter because it was her 8th grade year, her last year of middle school, and so I don't know. Anyway, back to the games. So like I said, I really, really enjoyed getting that Daphne to work. Wow. I mean, that emulator is just not user friendly. When you got one like when you're used to like Stella, which is real easy, or MAME, that one you was pretty much boom. You dump your ROMs in the ROM folder and away you go. So, but yeah, like it's nice, but it takes those files are just huge. Those ROM files of the Laserdisc games, those files are just so huge. I just couldn't believe how big they were. I'm just like, wow. But I remember back in the day when you could still play Us Versus Them. I think that was like the last Laserdisc game you could ever play on MAME. And I remember I think they called the CHD file. It was the video file. I think it was like 27 gigabytes. Now on Daphne, they're not that big. But it's an amazing emulator. It really is, to be able to play some of those games. Honestly, the ones like when I was a kid, you would see them at the arcade and you would see how much it cost to play them, and you're like, no, because I mean, you go to like someplace like Celebration Station or some of those arcades, and you get so many tokens to play, and you're like, okay, I can play 2 or 3 games of Donkey Kong or 1 game of Us Versus Them. What do you think I'm going to pick? Although, to be honest, okay, I'm not familiar with, we got someone here. I'm not really sure what is Raspberry Pi. I keep hearing people talk about it, but I don't know exactly what that is. If you can share and let me know, please do, because I have no idea what I've seen people talk about it, but I'm not familiar with that. Kind of similar to is it similar to Launchbox? Because that's what I generally use. If you watch my emulator episodes, I generally use Launchbox with RetroArch, unless there's a particular emulator I really, really enjoy, like, for instance, and then some of them, you just really can't use. Like, I use that VCC for the TSR 80. Yeah, that one, and I'm not even going to try to run that through RetroArch. It's great though. I mean, I did not realize how many games they actually made for the TRS. I keep getting those confused. The TRS 80 computer. I mean, good Lord, there were so many games. I guess because I didn't really know anyone that had it. That had a TRS 80, but oh man, there were so many games. Some licensed games, of course, but then there were some rip-off games, like for or whatever, clones, whatever you want to call them. Like instead of having Donkey Kong, they have Donkey King. It's essentially the same thing. Well, remember that old game for DOS they had called David's Kong? I don't know if any of you remember that game. There was a guy. It was really fun because it was a little different than Donkey Kong. You would actually get to the top, you'd grab the girl, and then you had to go back down again and take her home. And like the Kong would get really mad, and he'd like throw this barrel, and it would break down all the platforms. Yeah, I remember that. That was a fun game. Actually, I still got it. I got it in my MS-DOS section on Launchbox. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I was just surprised how many games there are. A lot of them, made by just, I think, just independent programmers. And there were some real weird ones too. It's a computer about $35-$50, probably Android type system, but you can load crap loads of games on it. Put them in the one up arcade stuff. Oh, really? Oh, be darned. Huh. I'll be darned. Huh. I'm going to have to check into that. I really, that is my dream, is to have a MAME like video game cabinet. I would love to have one of those. A MAME cabinet. I would love to have November. And there were a whole bunch of these cabinets there. And if any of you are not familiar, they can actually, the cabinets nowadays, you can put multiple games in. They have a really cool MAME one where it's got, of course, thousands. I saw this really cool cocktail table on eBay a while back. It was $1,500, and it was a cocktail style table, and it had like, I think about 1,500, maybe 2,000 games on it. It was nice, but I've always wanted one of those. And it looks like the cheapest way to go is to build your own, and it seems like it's really not that hard to do. I was watching this other video, this other channel, and the guy was talking about how to make your own arcade cabinet for like less than $1,000. And it looked, yeah, those are nice. Believe it or not, those I guess you could say where the joystick and the buttons go, that actually is pretty reasonable. I've seen those go for like $100. So I think mostly it would be the material would probably be the hardest thing. And you can get stickers and, all over. And then when I was at that coin op show, they actually had the marquees that go at the top of the arcade machine. And they're pretty reasonable. You can actually buy them pre-lit, and they're not too bad. But of course, when you go to those shows, everything there's expensive. Everything. But it had a lot of cool stuff. And of course, it brought back a lot of memories because I had gone to it with my father before. And my father used to love coin op stuff. He had a jukebox. He had a bowling machine and about four or five pinball machines. I need to buy a monitor and all the controls, etc. And as I understand it, there's a whole culture of people writing programs. Oh, wow. Huh. Yeah, like I said, those controllers, I think, I've seen them go for pretty reasonable. Yeah, I've seen those go pretty reasonable. I think the monitor would probably be, you'd have to get a really big monitor for that, obviously. Yeah, I would really like to get one of those. I'm gonna have to look into it eventually after things settle down. Let's hope they do. I am really gonna have to look into that seriously because I've really always wanted a cabinet. My father did too, but see, my father, I know his way is mine are a little different because I know someday I'm gonna have to buy one, or like Mr. JDNJ is saying, build one, with certain, and things like that. My father was used to hearing these words, and they were, if you can get it out of here, you can have it. Unfortunately, nobody ever said that to him about an arcade cabinet, but they did say that about the bowling machine, the jukebox, most of his pinball machines, and what was that other thing he had? That pop machine. I remember he had that. No, he actually had to pay for that a little bit. They made him pay like, I think, $50 and then told him to get it out of there. And then he had to buy a new condenser for it. So, but he always wanted to get a Miss Pac-Man machine, and, he never did. mostly, like I said, because nobody was willing to tell him those famous words, so he never got one. He didn't want to get a really used one either. He always said, "Oh, people leave it on, and it burns into the screen and stuff." Which sometimes I guess it does. I've seen a couple that have, and oh, those are bad. I hate that when they get, they're burned into the screen like that. I think that's just from leaving it on 24/7. But regardless, yeah, I would really like to have a cabinet of some kind. I don't want to get one of those cabinets you see, those mini cabinets that they sell. You guys have probably seen those like at Walmart. Yeah, those ones I don't want. Okay, back in the early 80s, my friend made his own arcade cabinet. Oh, that is so cool. That is so cool. Yeah, that is so cool. I would love to see one of those in action and see how they did it. That would be, especially now, would be real easy though, because I mean, if you get a Harmony cart, you can just plug that sucker in there and you can just scroll through and then pick your game. Oh, Harmony cart's great. If you have an Atari 2600, a working 2600, you've got to invest some money in a Harmony cart. Now, what a Harmony cart is, it's a cartridge, and you get a not really flash drive, those flash disk kind of things, and you have to load it into your computer, and you put all your ROMs in there. Yeah, I would love to see that. I'm sorry. I just, I'm going to, anytime somebody comes in here and wants to talk, I'll drop what I'm saying. Unlike some people that have these live streams, they just ignore you and stuff. And I don't care if somebody wants to talk and they take the time to come in here and ask something, I'll stop mid-sentence and, talk to them. I bet it's a basement somewhere. Yeah, I would love to see what that or see it in action. That would be really cool. Now I forgot what I was saying, but the Harmony cart, right? So you fill up that disk drive, that little flash drive kind of card, whatever. I don't know what they're called, but I think you know what I'm talking about. And then you plug that little card back into the cartridge, and you plug the cartridge and turn it on, and then you got all those games in there. Yeah, so it's nice. Now I know SD card. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, an SD card. He figured out what I was saying. Yeah. So Harmony cart, like I said, is really worth it. I know that somebody made a modification recently of Pursuit of the Pink Panther, because Pursuit of the Pink Panther, even though it was dumped, it wouldn't work on a Harmony cart. So somebody else one guy went through and he finagled the file so you can actually play it on a Harmony cart, which is good because, like I said, how many people have been waiting for that game in the first place? There have been just so many people that have been waiting like all their lives to get their hands on Pursuit of the Pink Panther, and finally it's able to get done. Of course, it was Thomas Jensch that did it, so nobody should be surprised because he's a friend of this channel, and the man's a genius. So yeah, if anybody was going to figure out how to do it, it was going to be him. But I actually have a cart of it anyway, and of course I got the ROM on my computer and I got it backed up all kinds of places. But yeah, I got a cart pretty reasonable a while back. So, but then it got dumped too. But still, it's just great to have that game. It really is. Now, also really, oh wow, I did not know they had that. Huh. I bought a flashback. I bought the gold one and I gave it to my daughter because it was fun. We sat here one day and we were playing Combat 2, and yeah, we were just having a good old time. And I ended up buying a regular 2600, and so I gave it to her, and then she's like, I don't know how to hook it. And then I'd ask her every once in a while, did you play it? She goes, I don't know how to hook it up. So, but yeah, I would really love to. I did not know that the flashback had an SD card slot. That is so cool. I thought somebody was saying that, but I thought I read somewhere somebody's talking about that, but I thought that they were confused or something. That is so cool. Oh, wow. Huh. But what was I saying? Oh yeah. Now, unfortunately, some of the new homebrews don't work on the Harmony cart because now, of course, now they have more memory allowed in the cartridges, and you have to get the upgrade of Harmony cart in order to be able to play like some of the newer games. Now, John Champeau's Mappy will work on the regular Harmony cart, but then there are some that won't. Some of the newer ones don't work because they have more memory, and I'm not sure why that is. But you know, so again, if you are able to get a ROM file of some of the new Atari homebrews, they may not work. But and now, like I said, you just kind of got to look around, and you can find the ROMs. Of course, the best place to get them is AtariAge.com in the forums. You can find some of the ROMs there, like I had just said, the modified Pink Panther ROM, so it can play in in a Harmony cart. And of course, most of us have Stella, but and then because it has HDMI out, it has one issue: the original paddle control. Oh, really? Oh, wow. The original paddle controllers don't work with it. Oh, that's terrible. Because when I bought the guy that sold me the Atari 2600 I have now, he gave me like 4 or 5 sets of paddle controllers. He's like, yeah, well, these things tend to break, so I just threw a couple extra in. I'm like, thanks. Yeah. Oh, that's too bad. That's cool. HDMI out. That is. Oh yeah. So I remember I saw that on the website that they sold paddle controllers. I wonder if the newer paddle controllers are sturdier than the old ones. Because yeah, I know. I think everybody I know personally that had a 2600 had to replace their paddle controllers at least once. Because I don't know how that is. Because I'm not a tech person. I can't. My brother-in-law. Eric probably would be able to tell me because he's good at tearing stuff apart and putting it back together. I take stuff apart and put it back together, and I have parts left over. But yeah, that's that's too bad. Oh man, not being able to use it because, like I said, I've got quite a few sets of those. I don't have a whole lot of. I think I actually got an extra set of joysticks, but yeah, he made sure he's like, boom, he threw in those extra paddle controller sets because But I have all the controllers for my 2600. I have, the one that came with, come on, Anthony, Star Raiders, the Star Raiders controller. I got, of course, a set of the keyboard controllers, and I got the kids controller. So I pretty much got everything. The only thing I don't have is that surfboard one, and I think that only worked and it didn't even really work for that one game that they made it for. I think there's a couple prototypes out floating around somewhere of that. I didn't even cover that when I did my episodes on Atari 2600 prototypes because I watched it and I'm like, and I'm just too fat. If I stood on the surfboard controller, it would just break, and that would be hundreds of dollars probably down the toilet. So, and the games were okay. They were made by Amiga. So, I mean, Amiga knew how to make good games. And I think they were just trying to jump on the Atari bandwagon like a lot of other companies were back then. But anyway, I would like, speaking of old Atari controllers, I would like to try that MindLink controller that I talked about in that video. It's that thing that went around your head and like you doing different facial expressions and stuff and all that. You could actually control the game. If you buy one, I can help fix the paddle issue. Funny you mentioned the kids. Oh yeah, that kid's controller, man, is great. I have all of the games for it. And I have them on cart. The one that was the hardest to find was that Oscar the Grouch one. That was the hardest to find. I couldn't find it anywhere. What I was looking for, I wanted to get a cart and have the overlay. I wanted the whole thing. So I was able to easily find Ernie, the Big Bird, and Cookie Monster, but I had the hardest time finding that Oscar game and finding it reasonable. I actually found it finally. One guy, I just kept checking eBay and checking, and finally I found it. And so it was in a box too, so I was happy about that. So, it was great to have it. Now, honestly, I know it was only a prototype, but I would like to get the Grover game on cart. There was a guy that used to hang out in the Atari age that used to make custom carts, and I don't think he's replied to me yet. I'll have to check and see, but I'd like to get a custom cart of the Grover game. That was a fun game. Those were fun. I think it was too bad though that they didn't that they didn't keep making those, or of course we all know the big problem of why, but it's just, I think it's too bad that I don't really honestly remember those things even getting a lot of advertising on TV. I have the ROMs, but I think I need a controller. It must be similar to the keyboard. No, they're actually the same. You can actually use them intermittently. The buttons are the same. It's just bigger. Same thing with the controller for Star Raiders. Those controllers all work the same way, but I mean it's going to be kind of hard to do it, with the like I said, of course you need the overlays with the kids controllers, except for Grover. Okay, yeah, because like I said, they are the same. I mean, you can use those three intermittently, but it's gonna be kind of hard to play the kids controller games with that keyboard control because you don't have an overlay. You really need the overlays for those games, except for Grover, but not complete anyway. But you really don't need one. You can figure it out pretty well. Even the kids can. But and then of course, if you want, it'd be kind of hard to use a kid controller because you would need two of them in order to do like basic programming. And then it would be hard as heck to know what you're doing. You would have to actually make your own custom overlay for that to do basic programming, which, and I swear I've got to go back and do that. I was going pretty good for a while there, just learning basic, doing basic programming. And I actually, somebody donated overlays for Magic Card. Now that I would love to do. Magic Card was so cool. I've seen the overlays. It's mainly 4 directions. Yeah, generally, but it's just, I think for each game, it's different buttons. Like Oscar, you really need it because I think Oscar, the buttons are different. And then if you're gonna actually, now if it's just for you, that's different. You can figure it out. But I was hoping someday to actually try those out on some kids, like my wife's goddaughter's kids. She's got 3 little boys. I've been wanting to try that with them. Of course, my daughter's 14. But yeah, I kind of wanted to try that, let them play it and just kind of gauge their reactions. Because you got to admit, those kids controller games, they really pushed the 2600 to their limit. Those were some pretty intense games. All of them were. Even the ones that weren't finished, like Monster Size and what was that other one? That weird one with the peekaboo. Yeah, that's it. That's why I like to see inside of it. They're not really that expensive. I got my kids controller. I think I only paid like $10 for it, with shipping, and it was still in the box. I mean, it was in the box. They still had the box, but I mean, it wasn't new in the box. But they go pretty reasonable. I have seen kids controllers go pretty reasonable, and they're very sturdy. They were made to be dropped, obviously, but yeah, they're very, very sturdy. So if you see one for sale, they shouldn't be too expensive. I've never seen them go for a big price unless they're still new in the box. And like I said, they're very well made, much better than the paddle controllers. So yeah, that is true. Because I don't know, I don't know, maybe I don't even know if the Flashback has the any of the kid games on it. Not that the one I had the Flashback Gold, and it didn't have any of them. It also didn't have basic programming or code breaker or that mix, concentration, none of those. So I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know if it even would be compatible. It may not be. That's a point. That's a thing. Because PAL controllers aren't compatible, then there's probably a really good chance that it might not be. What I would do then, I was gonna say the Star Raiders controller, those go for like next to nothing. I mean, I've seen those go for like $2 or $3. I don't even know why they did that. Why they went to all that trouble to make that controller for that one game, and there's only like 3 buttons you use on it. When you play Star Raiders, there's not really a whole lot you do with that button other than to like change the screen and like warp and stuff. And you don't even need the order; you just memorize it. Honestly, that seemed to me like a big waste. Now we're saying, but that game was so cool. See, the problem with me is I played Solaris before I played Star Raiders, and you're supposed to do it the other way around. So after playing Solaris and loving it, I tried playing Star Raiders, and I'm like, there's only one quadrant. And that's when I remembered that Solaris was the sequel to Star Raiders for obvious reasons. Problem is, flashback joystick is 3. Oh, right. Yeah, it does. Oh, huh. Oh, be darned. Yeah, that's right. It does, because I remember that it had those extra buttons. Yeah, that's interesting. Now, I've never actually tried it, but somebody told me that you can actually use a Sega Genesis controller on an Atari. I don't know if that's true. I've never tried it because I didn't have a Sega Genesis. Well, I did, but that's a story for another day. But I wonder if that would actually work, if a Sega Genesis controller would work, because, it's got the same, input there. That would be something to try if you have one. Those, for some strange reason, those seem to go for a little bit of money. I don't know why that is. I don't know. I actually thought about getting a Sega controller and trying it, but then I was looking on eBay and I'm like, that much? Nope. So, but anyway, like I said, I was really hoping to get a chance to play that, let a kid try. Yes, you can, but I didn't grow up with that style controller. Yeah, I know. It was kind of hard. Honestly, I remember when I first got the NES, the first time I tried the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System, I tried it at this store we used to have called Highland. It was like a Circuit City kind of place, and they had it out there where you could try it. And I remember having the hardest time with that D-pad. I was like, what the hell is this thing? And I had the hardest time with it because, I'm so used to playing like this, and so I'm sitting there like, what am I doing with what, and then of course I got used to it eventually, but yeah, it was a heck of a transition. I know I wasn't the only one. I mean, there had to be a lot of people that had a little bit of trouble with transitioning from a joystick to a joypad, honestly. But then, now, of course, as time goes on, they put those little bitty joystick thingies like on the PS4 and stuff, and I've gotten used to it. I can go kind of back and forth with them. And remember the first time I let my daughter play the Flashback, she's like, I said, okay, we're going to play this. And she's like, how do I hold this thing? Thank God. If it had been the 90s, I could have said, that's what she said. But it's not the 90s anymore. So, it was a big transition. But even more interesting, can you imagine what the transition would have been for somebody that was used to playing with the Fairchild Channel F and then going to Atari, or better yet, the Magnavox Odyssey, and then going to a joystick? That would be something. I mean, honestly, though, I love the Fairchild Channel F controller. I really like how they had that. You didn't have a button; you had that knob on the top. But yeah, we had the Odyssey, and it was it was interesting because here's how goofy I was. I was so little when we got it. And then when I got older, I saw it in the closet and I'm like, hey, Dad, can I try it? He goes, you're not going to like it. And I remember trying it and I'm like, huh? But I do have an emulator for it. It only works through DOSBox. It's a real old one. And you actually have to mount the cartridges on it and stuff. And, honestly, it could work. If you could get a big enough screen, if you have a big enough laptop, you could actually roll those things on the screen and you could play it right on your computer just like they did back in the day. Oh, man, and the thing is, them controllers got hot, too. And you couldn't really put them on your lap. You're like holding them. You kind of have them on a surface, and you're doing the rolling and stuff with it. And oh, that thing used to get so hot. It did, and you were sitting there like, I think that was a sign that it was telling you, okay, you've been playing long enough, turn it off. But yeah, and those things were not very hardy. If you ever go on eBay or other places, it's really hard to find a Magnavox Odyssey that's still working. Actually, I wanted to get one, a broke one that didn't work. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I love those things. Those were fun. I remember JoJo and I played it for a while, and she and I played Pong for a while one time, and we just had a blast. We're like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and she's like, this is getting monotonous. I said, yeah. So, but yeah, we had a lot of fun. I remember, like I said, he's got a point though, is that, back in the day when these came out, we just thought they were the greatest. And they were. I mean, one thing I like about the Fairchild Channel F, their like version of Pong, is at the top, like I said, if you watch that video, they actually had where you could, on the top, they have a knob on the controller. So you could actually turn your stick thing on the screen and moving it up and down. You can actually make the ball, go other direction. It was kind of cool. But like I said, it's really easy for us as classic gamers to go forward. I've always said this. It's easy for us to go forward and try the newer game systems and appreciate them, I guess. Not really, and some people don't like them, but it's much easier for us to go forward than it is for kids to go back. Now, I'm closing about running out of time here, and I remember telling my daughter about, of course, my daughter was raised around the classic games. She likes old games, new games, and so she's used to playing games from all generations. Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Oof. That had to be fun. Yeah, that one had to be really fun. That like I said, there's one version like that on the on the Fairchild Channel F where you can do that. And I think there's one on the no, it's not. But anyway, what was I saying now? Oh yeah, and my daughter is 14. And she was telling me that there's a large number of kids that she goes to school with that are playing the old games. That they're playing the old games and having fun. And that was the key word, they're fun. She was telling me that, they're tired of some of these new games. Because yeah, they got 3D graphics. Yeah, they got realistic this, that, and the other. They got all this, bells and whistles. But then the game's not a lot of fun. And all these people that are losing their minds over Red Dead Redemption, you ask them, do you think you'll be playing this game 5 years from now? How about 10, 20, 30, even 40? Are you going to be playing this game 40 years from now? I don't even think most of them are going to be playing it 5 years from now, much less even 6 months after they beat the game. A lot of people say, well, you know what? I'm going to go trade it in and get something else. Like I said, when we were kids, we didn't trade in anything. Those games, unless the only way we got rid of them is if we traded them for other games or if we decided to get rid of, because, man, games were a lifelong investment back when I was a kid. We would get games and they weren't going anywhere. We didn't, of course, we didn't have GameStop, but even if we did, I don't think most of us would have got rid of any of those games, because there were, yeah, you'd get some stinkers every once in a while, because of course you couldn't play them ahead of time. But generally speaking, you weren't going to be all that disappointed. You might not play the game that often, like one of those old space shooter games. There were so many space shooter games, it wasn't even funny. But those games would be around for a lifetime. Yeah, that's another thing. People don't realize that. They don't take into account inflation. It just depends. They don't take that into account. Like the other day, they were too. I did a video a while back on mail order games only. And when you did, when you figured inflation in, they were like $70-$80 even up from there. But yeah, stuff is basically relative. And my daughter, we went to FYE a while back, and they have, of course, now they're bringing back records, LPs, and they had some, and the LPs were like $30. And my daughter's like, wow, those are expensive. Weren't they cheaper when you were a kid? I said, yeah, but inflation. Yeah, they were $9.99 or $10 back then, but with inflation, they are about $30 now. So everything is pretty much relative. Back in the day, in 83 and 84, when we had the video game crash, and they had those discount bins for those $5 games and stuff, most of those games were crap. Those were those, like skeet shooting and, some of those Apollo games. And I'm not putting down Apollo because somebody had some good games, but, those were the discount bin. Kind of like, nowadays when you see the discount bin and they're mostly like PlayStation 2 game, PlayStation 3, from the last console, but yeah, like I said, everything's relative. But I remember, like, for instance, that one game, that climbing game that they had for Atari 2600 that you could only get on mail order. Even back then, that game was expensive. I think it was like $60 or 50 or something, and $50 was a lot back in the early 80s. So, that game is fun, though. That is a lot of fun, that climbing game when you're outside and you're climbing the windows and they're like birds and people are dropping stuff. That game's a lot of fun. I don't think it'd be worth that. And then Quadrant, oh gosh, that was about the same price. I didn't like that game, Quadrant. I didn't really care for it. Yeah, that's it, Atari Climber. I swear, I need a vacation. Yeah, oh, that game is so much fun. It is. I get a kick out. It's like, does this building ever end? It's kind of like, come on, guy. It's like, come on. You're just climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing. You're just like, ugh. But, oh, yeah. But no, that Quadrant, that was like actually the first Atari game to have real actual dialogue in it. And I didn't care for it that much. As a kid, I didn't. As an adult, I'll play it once in a while. But, it's not it's not one of them games that I play quite a bit. But, it's valuable. It's, like that one game. What was that one? Fire World. Oh, God, that was horrible. Actually, all those games were bad. Those Sword Quest games, they all pretty much sucked. But anyway, so like I said, the next episode coming up is going to be about part 2 of Atari 5200 prototypes. Then I got the next, and like I said, and I will be uploading the very first episode of Classic Board Games, and I will be discussing Sorry. So looking forward to it. I'm keeping busy. Been neglecting my writing a little bit, unfortunately, but I gotta get back on that. Although I just put out a book about a month or two ago, but keeping busy, trying to keep busy and stay sane, or as much sane as I can muster. This interesting coming from a guy who plays with puppets. But anyway, so I was kind of hoping to get more people here, but it's always good when I get anyone. It's always nice to see Mr. JDNJ. It's always good to see him. So I will be back for another live stream next Wednesday. Same time, 9 p.m. Central, 10 Eastern. So I hope everybody's safe. I hope everybody is healthy and doing well. Please take care of yourselves, take care of others, and keep people in your thoughts and prayers. And we'll get through this. In the meantime, check out my videos. I have a lot of my episodes in playlists. And don't be afraid to tell your friends and family that will enjoy them. Because I'm sure that you got some friends, family. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Like I said, heck of a guy. Long-time viewer of the channel. Always a pleasure to talk to him. And hey, yeah. Sorry, I'm actually wrapping up now, Martin. Sorry. But like I said, I'll be back next Wednesday, same time. So it was hopefully now it looks like people are going to be catching this at the not live. So it's great to do these and interact with you guys. It really means a lot because, I'll stop whatever I'm talking about just to talk to you guys. I don't have a problem with that. But then, you have other famous YouTubers and you go on theirs and they'll just keep, and you're like saying, hello, how are you? And asking a question like, and then they're like, they might look over, and unless you're sending them money, they're not going to talk to you. So, it's not going to be like this here. I don't care if I get 1 million subscribers. I'll stop and I'll talk to people. That's why I'm here, is for you guys. So you know what? You guys are great. And I appreciate you guys coming out, like I said, and keep watching the vids. Binge watch the old ones. And I will see you guys next Wednesday. Till then, have yourselves a great day. Goodbye.